Well, wonderful. Yep, my name's Morgan. Thank you so much, Chris, for not reading my bio. It's not that interesting. And yeah, it's definitely people can read it for themselves. But we will start out with introductions. So, yeah, I'm Morgan right now. I work as the VP of Human Resources at AcreTrader. I was hired right after we raised our Series B round of funding, which was at the time, I think, the largest Series B that had been raised in the state. And we were on a mandate, as all startups are, to 10x. And so we tripled the size of the company in a year. That means we went from under 40 to over 150 full-time employees. With a very, very, I would say, excruciatingly long and intense interview process for every single position. And so we hire very carefully, even though we hired very quickly. And then 2023 was pretty brutal. We collapsed one of our three business units. Some major, things changed in terms of the banking and financial industry. Investment rates changed, and so we downsized the company really significantly in 2023. Experience I never really wanted to have as an HR leader, but and then now we've since then really pivoted the structure of our company to we still have the AcreTrader, which is a farmland fintech investing platform. But the bulk of our team and resources are dedicated to Acres, which is software as a service dealing in land data. And so we are now building a SaaS company, which is also something that I never thought that I would do. And so that's every year has proven to be a really unprecedented new adventure and experience. And for those of you in the startup world, you know that a year in a startup environment is like, it's like a dog year. It feels like 7 years in another industry. And so, or a traditional workplace. And so we've learned a lot. Before I was here, I was at Startup Junkie as the director of programs and partnerships. And then before that, I was the director of people and culture, which is like the Fayetteville cool way of saying HR at the Unlimited here in Fayetteville. And when I joined that team, it was a similar kind of we had about 50 employees, and then over the course of a year and a half the company tripled in size, so it kind of went through this really dramatic growth spurt, and then COVID happened and we went through a very dramatic downsizing. And so yeah, so I and then I had other jobs before that, kind of leading into this wonderful industry of human resources. But including what I think was very impactful is lots of experience in the hospitality industry. You learn a lot about people. I think I learned the most about humans from being a baker, barista, bartender, and trivia master. That's important. I used to host bar trivia. I was on the Northwest Arkansas Society of Human Resource Management Board for several years and now serve on the board of the Downtown Fayetteville Coalition. I teach yoga at Elixir Yoga Lounge here in downtown Fayetteville. I work as a consultant for Startup Junkie Bullpen and Arise, and I am a proud pug parent. This is Hug the Pug pictured here. I did a similar presentation at the University of Arkansas for the Brewer Entrepreneurship Hub a couple months ago. And I was like, okay, how do I make sure this is interesting to everyone? I'll just put a picture of my pug on every single slide. I have since edited the deck, of course, and this is not that deck, so you don't get hug pictures on every slide, but there's a gratuitous one to start out.
I'm a former pug parent.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, my boy passed away in 2020, and I haven't been able to. I haven't replaced him. But yeah, I love pugs.
I do too. It's just a ridiculous clown.
Sweet.
So sweet. Okay, so since we're a small group, it really helps me to know who I'm talking to. So I would love to know your name, your company or concept, and then like the current stage. Or if you just want to say like, this is who I am, this is who I'm affiliated with, and this is why I'm here. Vivian already got us kicked off. So Alex?
Yeah. Hi. Can you see me? Hear me?
Hey, Alex. Yes.
Hi. Yeah, so I'm Alex. I work for EMCT at the moment. So we were part of the GMAP at Startup Junkie, so the Global Market Expansion program for the Korean companies.
Yes.
And so we do remote monitoring services for facilities and buildings. And I just thought I'd join because we're currently expanding in the US and Vietnam. And since it's a Korean company and I'm French, like I thought it would be great to have some insight on how to build a team here because we're looking to do that soon. So yeah, that's the stage at where we are.
That's very exciting. I remember your pitch presentation
Yeah,
at the
exactly.
Tech Summit. Yeah, you were awesome. Well, thanks for being here, Alex. Okay, R. Nevels.
Hey, good
Hi
afternoon,
there.
everyone. Thank you very
Hi
much.
there.
I'm Richard Nevels. I'm the founder and CEO of Blade Solution Corp, and also the inventor of the Revo 6, which is an alternative to mowing with metal blades. It's a aluminum hub that utilizes commercial grade trimmer line, and we're closed on our Series A in 24, and actually working on a Series B right now. So we're looking at starting
Awesome.
to expand and build on our team in 2025. Had a very nice season 2024. We had a 1,500 round production run, and we've sold over 1,100 of those in 46 states and 2 U.S. territories. So we're pretty excited about the move.
Richard, I remember you from when I worked at Startup Junkie. I don't know if it was through a couple different pitch competitions, but I think you were still in like prototype stage. This would have been circa 2021.
Yep.
So I love that you're here right now. Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much.
It's awesome. Eric? Oh, Eric,
Can you
I
hear
think
me
you're
now?
muted. There we go. There we go. Yep,
Oh,
got
cool,
you.
cool. My name is Eric Smith, and my concept is a Kix Carp feed meal, where we're going to take the invasive carp that floods the Mississippi River Basin, and we're able to process it directly with soybean meal and other grains to create direct feeds, i.e. aquaculture feed, cattle feed, and for pet parents who are looking for quality products that way we have a tracking system of what it is, but it's the great proteins and the sources that are there. And so when we process the whole fish, we mix it, what happens is the bones and the scale, we're able to use that as a fish fertilizer. So we're 100% sustainable, solid system. I've had it for years. And so this is just a starting point for me and just hanging out with you guys. I love Chris and everybody there. And so there you go. That's all I got. I have nothing
I
else.
love it. No, that's great. Yeah,
Now,
carp
I'll brag
are
on Eric. He just got his Builders and Backers idea funding, right? Like you got accepted in that
awesome.
award.
I did, in fact.
Oh,
Congratulations. Wow, that's awesome. As a frequent swimmer in the Illinois River, I can say the carp are freaky.
It's a quality
And
product, though. It's a quality product.
yes,
Just so
I
happens the
believe it.
technology we have, we don't have to boil it and have all the stick water. It's totally sustainable because we use 100% whole soybeans, whole
It's
everything.
amazing.
Then we utilize it where it's going to go.
I love it. Yeah, that's awesome. Joseph.
Hello, yes, Joseph Barra, CEO and co-founder at Solidot. And our concept is that of a circular economy. We recycle biomass waste into valuable products. And today we are commercializing the technology into the ag space. We prevent the so-called volatilization of herbicides. We prevent runoff of all of those. And the reason why I'm here is now that we're commercializing our technology, we're realizing that we have to grow the team in a certain way. And, often, startup will fail because of team formation. And, as soon as I saw this posted on LinkedIn, I was like, I just jumped into it. But like, I have to be here to at least get a little bit of knowledge about how important it is to form a team, a winning team. That's why I'm
Yeah,
here.
awesome. Welcome. That's phenomenal. Very exciting for you. And then finally, Tom. Hello.
Buddy, I am Tom. I am here with two hats. So one, I've had a consulting business for 20 years with the stated objective of being invisible and not scaling, so I could prioritize playing dad. After 20 years, my kids are moving out and I'm getting lonely. And so I am actually for once working to scale that. And then separately, I have a startup that actually looks at the challenge that you're talking about here in a slightly different way. So my hypothesis is that the majority of failed employee experiences come down to issues with compatibility versus competence. And I believe that I have developed some software that can actually codify an individual's professional preferences that then can do a bunch of interesting computational stuff to be able to predict compatibility and to better train individuals to perform better at whatever they do without the need to have any great natural intuition or instinct, which happens to be something that I completely lack in my personality. So I've completely built a tool to solve a problem that has largely defined my career.
I love it. Tom is going to, you should present like the follow-up to this session, Tom, where it's like the deep dive science behind, because I think we're going to talk about some of, the same things in terms of how to really hire strategically, but you're talking about it from a much more scientific based approach than I am. And I love it. I think that Chris, that would be good content.
I take that as a firm commitment. I'm excited to do it.
Perfect. I love it. Awesome. Okay, well, it's great to meet you all. Did I miss anyone? I think we're good. Okay, wonderful. So today what we want to talk about, I like to set objectives and expectations. This is going to be just some good practices for building a strong team and creating a high feedback environment, which I think is one of the most important focuses that you can have in building a team. And then tips for building out, what I call your company curriculum. So the full employee experience. This is not legal advice. This is not your compliance checklist. So those are kind of my caveats to get things started. So as a founder, just to jump right in, I believe that the two most important criteria that you can have when building your team is hiring in alignment with your values and around your deficits. So I would say one of the most important things that you can do is clearly identify your personal values in the workplace. So I've got a couple little exercises here that we can do this in real time. The first is an active reflection. So think of the most badass person that you know. Someone that you would want on your team project, your desert island, your zombie apocalypse team. Someone that you know would show up and that you can count on to be excellent. So what are the characteristics of these individuals that come to mind? And the reason I like to think about this, I like to think about identifying what you admire in someone else rather than identifying what you think your own values are, is because we can often project what we think our values should be rather than identify what we actually innately do prioritize. And so what you admire in others typically aligns with what is most important to you when it comes to work or output. My caveat is these aren't necessarily your strengths, right? These are just things that you value and that you recognize as essential to building a badass zombie survival team. Another approach to identifying your values in the workplace as a founder is to ask 3 people. I like 3 because you kind of can, you get a chance to sort of triangulate different data points. Ask 3 people who you've worked with in some capacity what they think your core workplace values are. And then ask them for examples and rationale. So how have you seen this played out? Again, rationale behind this is that what others observe about your actual lived values is often more accurate depiction than what you perhaps intune or intend for your values to be. So thinking about this, I could sit all day and say, yeah, I value, I value efficiency above all. But if the people that I work most closely with say, Morgan, you're rather slow. Like you are so thorough and detail oriented in a process. You will never pick the most efficient route to get something done. You'll pick the most thorough. Then what I think is a value of me might not match up with what actual lived out and performed values have been. So as a founder, your success, I would say, is contingent to your self-awareness, especially in early stages when you are starting to build your team and you're building team with people who you're going to work very, very closely with. There's a really natural proclivity to hire people that you like and that are like you. I would challenge you to instead acknowledge your deficits and hire to your weaknesses. So don't hire people who like the same things, who think the same way. Hire people who are different than you and who excel at and are more expert in the things that you aren't. So you want to hire in alignment with your values always, because long-term effects of working very closely with someone who doesn't have the same core values as you do will be very difficult and detrimental long-term. And then acknowledge your deficits, hire to your own weaknesses. So a little reflection moment here. Think about a job or a project that you have recently worked on. What did you put off the most? What's something in that process that you deferred doing for as long as possible? Or think about the last time that you had to do something you really didn't like doing and that you kept putting off. Or you didn't, maybe you're an eat the frog kind of person, but what's something that you maybe had a little bit of the Sunday scaries about? We subconsciously avoid things that are difficult and or do not give us like this little dopamine rush of gratification and fulfillment upon completion. And these are typically the things that we're not naturally good at. It's a circular reference. We're drawn towards the things that we like doing, and we like doing the things that we're good at. And so sometimes it's very helpful to pause and identify what we're sort of unconsciously avoiding or pulling away from, and identify those as areas that maybe aren't our natural area of strength, expertise, or interest. And that's okay. I think it's much more efficient, especially as a founder, for you to spend as much time as you can doing the work that you like, because that's also typically the work that you're uniquely suited for. And to hire folks, there's always someone who loves what you hate. And so there's always someone, I hate spreadsheets. Our FP&A team jokes, except it's not a joke, that they lock and color code any spreadsheet that they hand off to me and say, these are the boxes that you can fill in and play around with. And they always send me the copy, not the original. And so, when I was building my HR and recruitment team, I hired an operations manager, someone who was doing the payroll and the processing and the benefits and crunching all of the numbers on that side of the HR function, because I knew that's not something like, can I do it? Yes. Will I put it off? Yes. Because I don't feel confident in my ability to do it well or efficiently. And therefore, it's not something that I'm probably going to do with as much excellence or expediency. The other exercise to help you identify, your deficits and where you can hire is when you ask 3 honest people, don't ask them what you're bad at, but ask them, say, hey, give me an example of a job that you think I would be terrible at. It could be a massage therapist. It could be a deep sea fisher person. It could be a barista. Doesn't have to be like career jobs, but just what job do you think I would like really, really suck at? And this is fun and funny. It's a great party game. Next time you have some friends over for dinner, ask them this question, just see what they have to say. And then ask them why, because it's often things that will stand out to someone else may not be as apparent to you. So someone might say, oh, Morgan, you would make a terrible bartender. And I would say, why? I was a bartender. I loved it. And they're like, well, you hate following recipes and you hate following directions and you don't like being told what to do. Okay, good point. So this is a fun prompt for helping others around you help identify things that you naturally gravitate away from, even if you're not willing to admit it to ourselves. As founders, you are also often charged with being good at everything because you have to do everything. And so even the practice of stopping and saying, okay, there's something that I can't do, or I can't do as well as I can do other things. We have a little bit of like a subconscious resistance to that. Sometimes it's very helpful to ask people to reflect back on that on your behalf. So again, the most important criteria I would say is value alignment and differentiation of skills, expertise, or experience, so that you are building a stronger foundation rather than stacking. When you're at the very beginning stage, you want your team to be a strong, stable foundation, not layer upon layer of similarity, especially in skills and experience.
I have a question from the chat for you then.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Based on
Thank you
that.
for monitoring.
Someone's asked that they love your perspective on if founders can hire out for sales. They've heard that, founders need to make the first $1 million in sales and that they shouldn't have that as a deficit. So curious,
so the founder,
a weakness. Should a founder hire out someone for sales if that's a deficit they have?
at some point, absolutely. But I think if you as a founder aren't initially able to pitch and propose and sell your product, something, or your service or something that you're passionate about, I think you have to absolutely be able to do that first. And then, yes, you can and should quickly hire a sales team. I think people wait. I would say people wait longer than they need to hire someone in sales. And ultimately, most founders don't like the full sales life cycle. They like the pitch and they like coming in, often as the closer. But the whole sales process, I think you should absolutely hire someone to run that. But you as a founder will always be the visionary, and you will always be selling, if not to potential customers, to potential employees. And so if you don't have, the passion to articulate what it is that, you are bringing to the world and the value that you're adding, then no one else would be expected to either. But I want to differentiate between, so I think the founder's role is always to sell in some way, shape, or form, right? To your team, you're signing people up for the vision, to the community, to the public. They're going to be interviewed on podcasts and on TV shows, and you have to be able to articulate why what you're bringing is needed and valuable, always. But managing a sales life cycle and building out a sales pipeline and sales process and sales function is a really specific skill set that should, if you're not experiencing it and don't like it, then yes, should be one of your first hires. Great question. And thank you. Please, I don't have the chat pulled up, so thank you for, thank you.
Yeah, I got you.
Thank you, Chris, for filling in the deficit. Cool. So I like to then break this down to what I consider the components of any position. There's the technical and behavioral, or the what and the how. So the technical is, what does this job entail? What is the task or function or core responsibilities of a role? Essentially, if these 3 to 5 things don't get done, then it's the responsibility of this position. So say you're a founder and you are hiring you're like, what we need to do, I need someone to help me take this to market. So your first hire is a sales director. At the end of the day, if you don't successfully take your product to market, then that's that position's responsibility. What are you hiring them to do that you are not able to do alone? And then there's the how. So again, this is that sort of differentiation between hiring to your deficit around what experience, skills you may not have, and then in alignment with your core values as a founder and what you want the values of your company to be, especially on the foundational level as you're building a smaller team. This is the way that things show up to get done. So as you think about this, another framing that you can have is like, what would be deal breakers for you? So if you hired someone and you're still operating out of your garage or whatever, and this person, your essentially co-founder, your first or second or third hire, if they exhibited these behaviors, what would be absolute no-goes? If they were late all the time, if they covered up bad or sloppy work, if they did have bad or sloppy work, if they were non-communicative, think back about people that you've worked with and what is absolutely intolerable to you, and then outline those as core values and behavioral qualities that you want to build your team with. So the what and the how. So as you think then about building your team, I like to think of the entire employee experience sort of like on paper, an outline. So you're going to build all of these things as you go. Might as well sit down and kind of draft out the components and outline from the very beginning. In building any team, you're going to have the beginning process. So recruitment, job descriptions, your company brand, your community reputation, how you talk about yourself and your company on LinkedIn, if you have a website, et cetera, et cetera. So the very beginning, the introduction to your company and to the position. And then interviewing questions, projects, processes, notes. That needs to be outlined and needs to be consistent with every hire moving forward so that you have benchmark information for how you're building your team. The offer letter outlines what the employee should expect, what's expected of them, and what will be given in return in terms of compensation, benefits, et cetera. Then the handbook. Your handbook might be really brief right now, but this is your company policies and your standards. What are deal breakers to you? And then orientation. So someone's first day where you're telling them the overview of the company, the history, the current state, and where you're going. Onboarding is training that's specific to your role. So here's what you need to know to do your job. And here is what's expected in terms of you getting up to speed for this position at 1 month, 2 months, and 3 months in. And then continued engagement with your team. Surveys, one-on-ones, conducting, I'd like to do stay interviews on everyone's anniversary. Why are you staying? Exit interviews are great, but I'm more interested in why someone's staying. Reviews. Some of these things will be more and more important the bigger your company gets, but I will also say that how you hire your first, second, and third team members very, very much sets the foundation for how you build your company. And though this seems like a lot, I can assure you that these things, if they're critical for 10, they're critical for 2. If they're critical for 100, then they're even more critical as you make that first hire. And then development. What do you expect in terms of continuing education, manager leadership training, growth opportunities? I would encourage everyone to hire folks who are curious and who want to continue to grow and to learn. And so outline what that looks like if you expect your team members to initiate that themselves, if that's something that you provide or are going to orchestrate for them. So outlining that, the structure you set with your first employee is the foundation of your future company. Once you start to make these hires and build your team, I'd like to propose that the key roles of successful leadership in a high-growth startup environment: support, challenge, communicate, document. Let me break that down a little bit. So support. Your role as a leader of a team is to ensure that there are very clear priorities and then help get anything out of the way that's prohibiting success. So priorities, I'll differentiate here between priorities, projects, and tasks. Priorities are, again, this is what's in your job description. I need you to come in and take care of these big things. If these big things at the end of the day don't get done, that was on you. And I would say the bigger the role, the bigger the buckets of the priorities. So as you know, the VP of HR, one of my priorities is to ensure that we have an appropriately staffed team to meet business objectives. That's pretty big. That's pretty broad, but that's my priority. That's part of my role. Projects. This is how you accomplish those priorities. So for me, that might mean building out a recruitment function if we are in a high growth mode, or that might mean building out an evaluation process so that we can be sure that every position is clearly aligned to our company targets. And then tasks is how a team member manages their day to day. So I like to highlight this sort of these different kind of this big, medium, and small overview of work, because micromanagement is what happens when a manager finds themselves spending all of their time in the task bucket at the bottom. So as a manager or as a leader, you want to set the priority. Maybe you have some oversight on the projects, and you should be spending no time in the tasks, because you're hiring someone who, if you're hiring them, should be able to, you've hired someone who has the experience to do what you need them to do for the role and the independence to do that on their own. So I would say micromanagement happens if a manager or a leader hasn't communicated expectations, either initially or in ongoing feedback, or if an employee simply doesn't have the skill, experience, or ability to complete their work effectively. Then you as a leader feel the need to go back behind them and check emails that they're sending, meetings that they're scheduling, projects that they're overviewing. And so I would say the anecdote, like when I meet with people and they're consulting, they're like, what's the big thing that everyone messes up on and we need to avoid? And I would say, have regular employee-led one-on-ones. And then I always get pushback. But Morgan, we work right next to each other. We spend all day working together. We talk constantly. Doesn't matter. Having a structured, set aside context for your employee to come to you with their priorities, projects, and overview, and you have that alignment, circumvents so much miscommunication that happens later on. So I'm going to get into this in a little bit more detail. But I would say, again, as the manager, your goal or a leader, set the priorities, maybe help provide some guidance on the project, spend 0 to no time in managing the day-to-day tasks. If you find yourself in that space beyond the onboarding period, at least, then take a step back and ask why. So I believe in the power of one-on-ones, especially in a small team where you work closely together. I believe in creating a consecrated space and context for structured conversation that pertains to work and performance. It might feel silly or pedantic, but there's something about taking some time aside, sitting across the table from someone and saying, let's talk about your work. That is much more clear, direct, accountable, and candidly kind than just having these ongoing conversations. So here's my hot tip list for having one-on-ones. I think they should always be employee-led. So I think that they need to be, the employee should come with the agenda, the employee should come with their priorities and the projects they're working on. And then if there's something that needs to be adjusted, then you can have those conversations and rearrange priorities or, kind of recalibrate on projects in real space in real time. Just because you're sitting next to someone or working closely with them doesn't mean that you're lockstep in the same direction. Physical proximity does not equal directional alignment. And that's why having intentional conversations is very important for that. Next tip is that it should make expectations clear. You check in often to make sure that you are clear that they're expected to update you on projects. So if there are big priorities or projects in the works, then that's the responsibility of the employee to let you know this is on standstill, this is at the bottom of my list, but create an expectation from the very beginning that the employee is expected to update you on where their projects are at, so that you never have to be that person who goes to them and is like, by the way, what's the status on this thing? If you flip the script from the very beginning and say, I want every week, even if there's no update, even if we're dead in the water on something, I want you to bring it up so that I never have to. That will resolve so much ambiguity and any potential friction long-term later on in the relationship. And then finally, your job is always to support and remove barriers. You are a coach, not a player or an opponent. So your job is never to do the work for them, nor is your job to find where they're, find a weak spot and expose that. Your job and your hope is to build a trusting relationship where your employee is bringing you their projects, their priorities, but also their problems and where they're experiencing blockers. And then you together can sit down and discover the best approach to resolving those problems. So setting yourself up as someone who is guiding and leading and then removing barriers that they might not have. Sometimes it might be that they don't have the skills or experience they need, and you can provide that training or support. Sometimes they need permission or clarity around a project or objective. But I want to be clear that as frequently as you may be conversing with your team members, these things are not being clearly addressed as frequently as you might think they are. So sitting and having a scheduled, dedicated one-on-one time helps prohibit anything being lost in communication or anything being kind of chalked up to, well, I didn't realize that. I didn't know you were working on that, or I didn't know you wanted me to do that. So there's something really powerful about having set aside time to engage with your team members about their priorities. So a manager's job is to support, but also to challenge. So when you're building your team, you want to build someone, especially in a startup environment, who wants to bet on themselves, who has a proven track record, not necessarily of, checking all the boxes, but of taking some risks and being a little bit exploratory, and who's willing to say, I've never done that before, but I know that I can learn and I know that I can try. To do that, then once you've got that person on your team, default to delegating. So as a founder, you're used to doing it all and doing everything. And it can be really hard to let someone into your process, especially because your process is probably kind of messy. You don't have a clear cut step 1, step 2, this is our workflow, this is our cadence, this is our pipeline. You're literally building the plane in process. And so it will be really hard for you to A, let somebody see that, and B, let them take over what you have been building. So big challenge here for you is to default to delegating. When you're not sure, hand it over. And then see what someone can do with that. Require problem solving. It's also a really big temptation and tendency to solve problems for people and to provide answers when, questions or challenges arise. I always ask my, team once we're past like week 1 or something of onboarding, anytime they have a question, they need to attempt to find their own solution at least 3 times before they come and ask me. And then they'll check their proposed solution or answer with me. But we want to teach people and we'll make it a requirement that you find out what you don't know. And then we can recalibrate and check in and say, well, this is actually, this is what I would have done, or here's how you can find that information. But if you're hiring independent folks who like to bet on themselves, then require learning as a part of their job, rather than just teaching how to do something. Require problem solving and firsthand learning. Finally, clarify responsibilities. So the most frustrating experience for anybody can be not knowing what they're responsible for. And especially if you've got a small team, then it can sort of be like, well, we're all responsible for this. Tempting, but ultimately not in the service of you or of your team. So identify what is yours and what is theirs. And then then you'll of course help and support each other with those things, but give your team members full responsibility over large initiatives, maybe more than you think they can handle, and give them a wide berth of space to show you and to show themselves what they can do, but clarify what they have ownership of. So what I would next, building into having all of these, like regularly structured connection points and conversations, what you're ultimately trying to do is create a high feedback environment. If you're in a startup, then you're building quickly and you're probably doing something that you've never done before. Chances are you're also working with someone who has never done this quite before. So momentum is messy, but it doesn't need to be sloppy. And the best thing that you can do as you are building this foundational team is create an environment where feedback is expected and required and modeled on a very consistent basis so that you're constantly correcting and recalibrating and adjusting and adapting. That's what agility is being able to recognize when something isn't working well and then change into a different direction. Feedback, I think everyone wants to know how they're doing. You want to know how you're doing, even if you think you know what you're doing well and what you're doing poorly. So model it as a leader by asking for feedback all the time. Hey, how was that? How was that meeting? How was that one-on-one? How was my presentation? What could have been better? And seek to understand and receive that response rather than defend yourself. The quickest way to shut down a high feedback environment is to ask for feedback and then defend it yourself when it is provided. Just receive. Just listen, say thank you. Yeah, I'll think about that. And then maybe follow up in a different conversation with what's occurred to you or what you're going to change. But if I give someone, if I give someone a piece of feedback and their response is, well, here's why I did that, I'm probably not going to waste time giving them feedback again, because I want to hear and know that they are aware or ready to learn and to observe what they have, where they may have missed the mark, and are open to making those changes. And is very demonstrative about someone's approach in work if they're in an environment where that's the expectation. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm getting chat notifications. Chris, are there any questions we need to
Yes,
pause?
let me go ahead and give you a couple. Earlier on, you mentioned what your non-negotiables were, and someone asked where you draw the line for grace, like giving second chances and letting others develop. Where do you define, like, how far is too far? Because you were talking about that early on, making your list of non-negotiables.
I mean, I think that I think this is where fast feedback comes in, right? Like, you identify and address a problem immediately and directly. And then if it persists beyond that, then I would say, like, let's see. I think it probably depends, but there's if someone shows immediate sustained effort to address a behavior and you're seeing growth and progress, then continue to extend grace and make clear the expectations. If someone continues to habitually perform in the same manner over and over again, then frankly, that's a violation of your boundaries and your expectations, and you should part ways with that person. I think what you can see is, yes, absolutely immediately address something. And then if you see, again, intentional, immediate, and sustained effort towards improvement, doesn't have to be in perfection, but if you can see that the frequency is decreasing and that there's actual effort, grace all day long. Absolutely. It's really hard for some people to be on time. It's really hard for some people to not swear at work all day. or whatever, whatever the challenge is. But as long as you see improvement and intent and effort, great.
And then we have
Um,
another question. What percent of a budget and then of revenues can comfortably go to HR as a whole?
That's a great question. I don't know. I would say so typically, they say that you're at the inflection point for hiring a full-time dedicated HR person around the like 40 to 50 employee mark. And so that's sort of the ratio of employees to HR personnel in startups. And so and then yeah, I don't know what the budget allocation is. That's a really good question.
I think the 40 to 50 employees, that's good. That's a good benchmark. And then there's one last question we've got. Someone said that stay interviews can reveal a company is attracting and retaining a greater concentration of people that lack the motivation or ability to advance in a way that creates better opportunities elsewhere. Is there truth in what I've heard that stay interviews can do this? That they can make it where people lack motivation or want to advance elsewhere. Any thought on that?
I think that's interesting. Does that mean that I don't know if the content of the stay interviews necessarily would reveal that. What it sounds like is having someone who stays in a position for multiple years indicates that they are not growing or progressing their career. Is that the implication?
Tom, you want to clarify a little?
Sure.
Yeah, so is my question. And yes, so I was just trying to understand maybe a little bit of the devil's advocate of the truth of high loyalty among employees can actually be an indication that stuff's too cushy or that someone plateaus at a certain level. And you talk about wanting to have challenge and progression, but the reality is people find great careers phoning it in, right? They find the well-paid position that doesn't take a lot of effort. I'm curious, with your experience, have you found stay interviews reveal actual issues and you realize, oh my gosh, I don't want these people to stay, versus having it be, oh, that's so great, we're a family and everyone wants to retire here?
Well, working backwards, I hate the term family for workplace relationships and will never refer to anyone that I work with as a family because I think I like them all more than people I'm related. I'm just kidding. But I would say, so I know if I want someone working at my company or not, right? Like I am very attuned to, who is making an incredible impact and who I want to retain. And so even if someone is happy and or comfortable, if they are not a high performer or a major contributor, then there's not long-term going to be a place for them at the company. So that's more, I think that's, like, that's a little bit like someone settling into a comfortable or easy role is less revealed in, a stay interview, I would say, than would be revealed through like ongoing understanding of their output and engagement. And so I've never, if I have, we use, I don't know if you're familiar with the Keeper test, but like, this is, this is a question that I ask managers all the time. If if XYZ person in your company got another offer or on your team got another offer and was leaving tomorrow, would you fight to keep them? Would you come to me and beg for us to negotiate counter offer or whatever? And if the answer is no, then we need to talk about why. So I think that having someone who's a, average or underperformer is less going to be revealed in a stay interview and more through, management.
Makes sense.
I don't know. Yeah. Stay interviews are a retention tool for me for sure. And I have stay interviews with our employees because they're highly valuable and I want to know why they're here and what keeps them here, why they started in the first place, what's been surprising or challenging, and why they're here, and then what would compel them to leave. Those are kind of the line of inquiry. So this has gone by very quickly, and we are at 12:58. What I will do is I saw that there was a question about sharing the deck, and absolutely we can. I have a little really, really succinct and easy to remember, just kidding, it's not, kind of template for giving and receiving feedback that I think is a great little checklist and very helpful. And then also an overview for how to address concerns directly and impersonally with team members when there's something that's going wrong. And I think those are pretty handy. I mean, I have these conversations all the time with my team and then with the people that I consult with who are having trouble with their team. How do you directly and respectfully and depersonally address a concern and then agree on a productive outcome? So I will share this deck, but before we go, in respect for everyone's time, are there any other questions?
I do, but it's more from the employee side, because
Yes.
so startups are usually messy, as you said in the beginning. So for instance, I got into my job in Arkansas during the program, and I knew pretty much nothing about the company or about what we were doing here. And so there was no proper onboarding or any guidance of
Sure.
any kind. So I kind of like, it feels like I'm the one figuring out what I should do in the test. So how would you bring that up to like your CEO or your manager to tell them like, yeah, nothing's clear.
Yeah.
Could we have structure and more clear guidance on like my role? And so I already like started an onboarding kit for now to continue, but
Yeah.
like just as an individual for roles, how do you ask them to make it clearer and more structured?
Yeah. I think in that situation, that has been the story of like every job I've ever had. I don't think I've ever had a job that anyone else ever had before. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, I don't think I've ever been in a job that has been like clearly outlined. And so, yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think that you be the change, right? So you set weekly one-on-ones with your manager and you say, hey, here's my understanding of my priorities. Here's what I understand are my responsibilities and under my purview. And so I think you don't ask, create. What every busy founder, co-founder, manager, leader, like you're the person I want to hire, right? Like I want to hire the person who says, hey, here's what I understand. And then we iterate off of that. Like it's so easy. It's so much easier to have iterative conversations off of a draft than it is to say, hey, I don't know what to do. Can you tell me what you are expecting of me? But you
Yeah.
come and you propose and say, this is my understanding of your needs and your expectations. Can we calibrate? And then you bring together each week, these are my priorities. This is what I accomplished last week. And these are blockers that I have.
Mhm.
So I
Okay.
think you're on the right track. You're putting together the
Yeah,
checklist and yeah.
I
You're
just
writing your own job description.
Yeah, I graduated like 6 months ago, and like my big internships were in like multinational companies. So it's like whole other world where everything was already set up when I got there, and it was just
Yeah.
very easy to just
Yeah.
follow and just
Welcome.
get. And startups are just not like that at all. So
Yes, you're so right. And and again, I'm trying to encourage founders to have
yeah,
these for you, right? Like these clear expectations. And so everyone hear Alex's concern, like give me something to work with here. But in the meantime, absolutely and do this, you'll do this and use this in every job that you have, right? Like
yeah,
taking the initiative to put together your understanding of what is expected in this position and continually taking the initiative to check in and recalibrate.
yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Morgan. I really loved it, and I really want to dig into the how to give feedback things that we'll see in the deck and send out to everyone. That looked really interesting. We need to wrap up, but like I promised, If you are an Arise client and you have enrolled with us, which I think almost all of you have, we can follow up with Morgan and get you connected one-on-one for any questions or any additional consults that you might have. Morgan, thank you so much for sharing and for leading the discussion today. We really appreciate you. And
My pleasure.